Hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome back to House of Footy. It's your boy Ray, and tonight I've got Mac with me. Welcome, Mac.
Good evening.
The Premier League is back this weekend, and we're here to give you our reactions and overreactions to Game One of the Premier League. Before we get into it, don't forget to follow us on our social media, both on X and Instagram. Our handle is at House of_Footy. Also, don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe to us. We are on both Spotify and YouTube. And lastly, feel free to get in touch with us via email. We love hearing from you guys, and we want you guys getting involved. Our email is houseoffooty@hotmail.com. All right, Mac. The Premier League returned, and we had I guess, big heavyweight match that really started the weekend. I'm not sure if you took it that way, but of course, we're talking about Chelsea 0, Man City 2. Quick reactions, Mac. What were your overall reactions to this result?
It was tough because I was trying going into this game thinking about was this a free hit for Chelsea? They're facing again the four-time champions of the road, Pep Guardiola's team, one of the best teams of all time. And you're talking about a team, Chelsea, where I think even internally they'll be like, yeah, we have a lot of things that we need to be able to sort out with the new management. I think you're on over 40 players on the first team as of right now, so you have a lot of questions. But this also on the other side of the coin is one of the easiest times to potentially play against Man City. There's no Rodri, Foden didn't start. Most of their players just came back midweek from vacation, considering many of them had deep either Euros or Copa America runs respectively across the board. So you maybe, and at the first game back after winning 4 in a row, maybe, and even Pep Guardiola, so after the game, the desire to win the Premier League isn't really there right now for them, right? So is this one of the easiest time to play against them, and they still came out kind of limp? So it's a tough way, and you can kind of strike it any way you want. For me, just to be able to, when we're looking at the beginning of this game and the initial lineups, I think for me, the biggest win, which is unfortunate for him, for Manchester City, I really, really loved the addition of Savinho. He looked phenomenal on the wing. I understand he got hurt inside of like 42 minutes and Foden had to come on for him. But when he was there, it looked like he was a very interesting piece and someone where, not to say he's Mahrez-esque, but when you're running, he's running with the ball. He seems faster than he is, where he's gliding across the pitch. He seems comfortable on the ball, willing to take players one-on-one. And I would argue, even though Doku has a little bit more of the electricity in terms of maybe that pace, but Savinho fits more into that Pep Guardiola mold of a winger, where you can find a little bit more accurate with his passes, a little bit more technically gifted, I would say. So love to see that addition, as well as for at least on the Man City side. But to flip over to the Chelsea side, it frustrated me a little bit looking at the starting 11 where, and again, I understand you have so many different players and you got to appease certain players to get them onto the pitch. But I would argue their two best number 10s played on the wings respectively in Nkunku and Cole Palmer. So for me, there was a miss there. So even though, yes, the great positive for City, from what you came back, you managed to be able to get the win when maybe you're not feeling the best of it against a quote unquote good side. But from Chelsea's perspective, yeah, you lost against the champions, but again, I feel like there's a lot left on the plate that you could have done better. It's the first week, so we don't want to overreact. But if I was to overreact, this is a very poor start for Chelsea.
Well, yeah, that I would argue that is an overreaction because there were spells from this game where Chelsea were definitely had their chances, had a couple of penalty shots at the very least. You could argue that none of them were actually should have been given, and of course none of them did. But the fact that they got players in and around that area, it didn't look all that convincing at the top. Still feels like Nicholas Jackson is a new player getting embedded in. Some of those runs with him and Cuckoo, Enzo Fernandez sort of getting in each other's ways made it a little bit seemed like they were still in preseason mode. But for City, like you said, this was, I guess, a good enough result. They get the first win of the season and the first game, and they get the trip to Stamford Bridge out of the way for the rest of the season, right? So, you already talked about it. It would have been a nice way for Chelsea to, if they did, they had that spell towards the end of the first half where they had chances. If they got a goal there, it would have been an interesting second half. But what I did want to say is City, of course, what they do so well is they just know when to keep the ball enough so that it kills the momentum from the other team. And this is more so actually what happened in the second half that I want to bring on. that I want to talk about. But yeah, overall, just feel like it was Chelsea getting a good look at some players and an 11 that, in a sense, it kind of makes sense on paper at the very least. The only thing that I have to question is, should Enzo Fernandez be in that 10 role? Should it be someone else? Is it too early to have anyone else on the wings that really impresses Maresca and can stick a claim for himself there? But I don't think it's the end of the world for Chelsea to have this loss against the champions, and really you just build forward from there. I guess, do we want to talk about some I guess, because I do want to talk about some positives for Chelsea. Wesley Fofana, totally forgot that he was there. He started with Cowell, and honestly, really good game from him overall. Him, even Lavia, who started in midfield, looked pretty good. Very combative in the midfield. Both of them look like they're up to speed at the very least, and so I'm interested to see what that will look like for them in terms of the center back role and the two center mid roles, because straight down your spine, if you have players that are up to speed and performing at that level against the champions, albeit the first game of the week, should be positive moving forward. And of course, we have Cucurella for Chelsea, who played quite well. Actually, kept Doku quiet for the first 15 minutes until Doku switched over to the left. So got to give him credit there. But of course, Erling Haaland did get the last laugh and did score on Cucurella. So, I mean, that's pretty much how the game went. Anything else to sort of pick up from based on this City team that had no Rodri, like you said, Mac, from for the game, and Foden didn't really start. Didn't feel like he really got into the game per se. Is it just a matter of Guardiola is eventually going to pick his best 11, or is there a case for Doku and Savio to sort of stake the claims, and even Rico Lewis, who looked really, really good in this game, to sort of move on and make their claim for the starting 11? What do you think?
I think it's going to be heavy rotations again for Manchester City. They've consistently always put their best players into 28 to 29 games, so I don't think he's going to have really a set of 11 per se, other than for the likes of Foden, Kevin De Bruyne, Haaland, Rodri, Ruben Diaz probably. I think everyone else is pretty interchangeable depending on kind of fitness levels, who's available, injury concerns, stuff like that. That's how City have always gone, and that's how they've always performed at their best, where they know when to rest and when to play their best. So I don't see any questions there. But the good part is that if you are talking about players like Savio and Jeremy Doku continue to get better, even Kovacic, if he's able to fill in and play a Roger role like this is where this is progression from City, from what makes them more dangerous, where they have more options, because Pep Guardiola generally likes to run a thin squad. And even last season with a couple of players, Kovacic didn't have a great season, I would definitely argue, and Mateus Nunes didn't really fit in well necessarily from the jump, and Doku had his ups and downs. If you're getting more consistent play for some of those types of players, it just makes their more versatile going week in, week out. For me, though, on the Chelsea side, I'm still questioning is where that midfield three, I have a lot of questions up between Caicedo, Lavia, and Enzo Fernandez, because I think realistically, if you were to probably, I think when you're looking at the elite teams in world football today, most of them, if not all of them, are trying to run a midfield three with 1-6, where this team, I think, has 3 6s. They're trying to all fit together in different ways to see if it can work. And it forces them into a double pivot, which I think offensively is going to leave much to be wanted out of this team, because you're lacking that little bit more fluidity up top of an extra attacker in a lot of cases. And I think when you're playing even just like a back four, you're not going to get as much width as you want from players like a Cucurella or Malo Gusto. So for me, I think that is the area of the pitch they'll have to figure out. The good part is, again, the first game was against City. They have a follow-up game for the play-in for Europa League. And next week, I think when they face, I think it's Wolves, we'll learn a lot more about this team. Okay, what is the actual, when the game, yes, we were in all likelihood, no matter what 11 they played, who played anywhere, they were going to lose this game. In a game that they should win, what 11 do we see? What are the rotations that we see? Who's in the squad when things start to get serious now? Because I think this was a free hit, really, to be like, not necessarily worry about in a lot of ways. At least that's how they could view it going forward. but they need to start winning. And they finished last season well, to their credit, but this has been again, it's one game week, but poor start. They need to pick it up against Wolves because that's a team they should beat.
Yeah, and I really want to pick up on that as well because it really seems like well, we have to give Maresca some time. I think everyone does. He still played a 4-2-3-1. I'm not sure. I didn't really watch. I think it was Leicester, the team that he managed in the championship last year. If he actually plays that formation as well, it seems like he just kind of like Arne Slot, kind of picked up with the players that Klopp left him with the same formation, and then he just tried to make it work for the first game. You mentioned Wolves there, and coming up for them. One of the players that Chelsea did pick up from Wolves in Pedro Neto. Looked okay when he did come on, and there were some bright spells with him on the left. But I initially thought he was going to be playing on the right, taking off someone like Enzo Fernandez or even Romeo Lavia, so that Cole Palmer, as we all agreed, could operate in that 10 role, the best role for him currently in this Chelsea squad. So yeah, we're going to have to wait and see what happens with them. But to that point, I did want to talk about, before we talk about the goals, how well Man City did, because as soon as Chelsea started introducing some of those subs, Man City just killed the game by passing it and keeping the ball around you. So these new players like Mark Goy, the Chelsea striker that came on, I don't think he really touched the ball since he came on. Man City were really just saying, hey, you came on, you're going to be cold, you're not going to get any of it. We're going to just dominate possession and kill the game from here. But of course, the way they did get the win back, of course, was Holland and Kovacic with two fantastic goals, I would say. Was there a specific goal that you preferred over the other? Any criticisms for the defending or goalkeeping? I'll let you cook on that.
Oh, yes, and all of the above. For me, Erling Haaland got to start off there. I think again, this is like it shows how much of a complete, perfect striker he really is in terms of what he's able to do. Because a lot of like the traditional goals you see maybe on the counter or on pace or those tap-ins, but he has these other gear where, you know, he's able to take the ball on the half turn, take a touch, and have a delicate loft off over Sanchez, as well as at the same time muscling off Cucurella. So absolutely phenomenal there. That's 91 goals in 100 games in the Premier League for him already. That is scary in terms of the records that he's going to continuously break. And I don't think anyone is going to bet him against him to win the Premier League Golden Boot this year. Once again, for the third time in a row. So for me, again, he is as dangerous could be, the best striker in the world on his day, the best goal scorer without question, currently playing in world football. So great to see him to continue on to that. The Kovacic one, though, I do have many questions. One, just the memes are absolutely perfect. Where Man City spent 25 million and he walked by a midfield of 250 million against his former team to score from distance. Lovely to see that. I do question Sanchez in terms of ability to save that, considering he did get a hand on it. Was a thing near post. Great strike from Kovacic. Don't want to take anything away from that, but I will raise my eyebrow at Sanchez. I think maybe not partially, not to be able to put him in a tough position, but with Chelsea having 9 goalkeepers, now I'm not saying that he didn't have enough practice time, you know, because the split so many time between different goalkeepers, but you probably are feeling more pressure than ever to maintain your number one job, right? Where towards the end of last year, it was Petrovic starting in net, him coming in for the first game. They had just signed Philip Jorgensen, who was on the bench. He's probably feeling a little, like I said, a little bit feel stressed about his losing job. His collar's probably a little bit tight, where he needs to kind of go ahead and make that extra step to the one side with the assumption things are going to happen, and it doesn't work. He gets caught cold foot, scored on the near post, can be looked at poorly. There can be an easy switch there from Raska and goalkeeper. So a little bit unfortunate for him considering how that played out. But overall, I think he's a decent keeper. Just that was not his greatest moment right there.
Yeah, I mean, you touched on that already. So yeah, Holland, great feet in and around the area, and great strike by Kovacic. And lastly, before we wrap up this part of the podcast, Mac, one of the many players that was omitted from the matchday squad for Chelsea was Raheem Sterling, who made that big move from Man City 2 years ago now. It looks like it feels like it's been a while, but also so recent. It came out that he had or his team made some comments. I'm struggling to follow up the quote here. I did see it earlier today, but something about him really wanting to know what his future is with Chelsea. Apparently, Maresca's team had made it known that he was going to be a important role. He would have an important role for this upcoming season for Chelsea, but being left out and not picked for this game seems like a very big statement. What are your thoughts on that, Mac?
It's tough. It's poor from him, Raheem Sterling. It's tough because he was called on a lot of times last season to be a leader in terms of in terms of his role in the club, the younger players. He is weird to say. It feels like he should be older, but he's only 29. So realistically, he should still have a couple of good years of high level football left in him. Where he fits on this Chelsea team, I don't know, because he's looking for clarity. I think he's not the only one. There's a lot of players. And even after the game, as Maresca was talking about, where somebody's going to get disappointed no matter what. The manager has to make decisions. Sometimes players don't like it. It was a technical decision as to why he wasn't put even on the bench as a rotational piece. For me, I think I would not be surprised if this is one of the ways that he could potentially get moved out. This was Raheem Sterling, just to recall, is where this was Todd Bowley's first signing when taking over ownership for Chelsea. So very much that's your first signing, a statement of intent. With the relationship, I think this is his third manager. He's been at Chelsea for 2 years. It's already kind of coming to head the first game of the season. It's not a great look there for him to come out and feel the need to say that, or for him not to be informed ahead of time if that was not the case. So it's not a good look, and it's compounded by it's so plain and obvious to see what the issues are, right? Where when you're trying to build and I think this is to maybe not credited enough to a manager like Pep Guardiola, where he gets his team comfortable playing 28 games throughout the season, where maybe in eras before, players would expect to play every minute if possible, right? Where how do you manage 40 egos that all should think that they should be part of the starting 11 and still keeping everyone pulling the same rope, right? So not surprised by these comments. Feel like maybe that's not the best avenue for him as a leader to do so. But at the same time, I would not be surprised if this is the start of the end potentially for his Chelsea career. For me, I think he could start because there's so many options. You can put anybody on that left wing, and there's not going to be too much variable difference between them, in my opinion. So maybe shifting him off, looking for some cash, and do something else with it potentially. I think that makes a lot of sense. But it's a poor look all across the board, in my opinion.
Yeah, especially with the Chelsea team, who are constantly in the news about transfers in and what they're going to do in terms of how they're going to play, what personnel they're going to look at. If you have a player who's a Premier League winner in the likes of Sterling, 29, like you said, definitely not old and considered in the Premier League, and can bring at least some of that experience there. Him kind of being shunned out there, it's not a great look. Not to mention, of course, doesn't help the whole Chelsea situation. So we'll see what happens there. Of course, we'll keep an eye out on that. But let's take a quick break here, Mac, and then we'll be back covering the remaining matches from this week's Premier League return. Welcome back to Awesome Footy, guys. We are going to continue our podcast now with a separate section that's looking at our overreactions. And we're going to start it off with it's been only one game, but my overreaction, Mac, and I'll start first, as everything is the same that was left last season at Liverpool. And I'm talking about Liverpool as a city in general, and that includes two clubs. Liverpool did go away to Ipswich, got a decent win, 2-0, and got goals from Salah, got a goal from Salah and then goal involvement in an assist for Diego Jota as well. Whereas on the flip side, the other Liverpool club, Everton, already fighting relegation. The team that lost the heaviest in the opening weekend at home, that's also against Brighton. They did not look good going forward overall and made a lot of poor mistakes that caused them some very, very avoidable goals, I would say. So it's only been 1 week, but Everton are already fighting relegation, and Liverpool look like they have put some of the how will Liverpool play after Klopp? Doubts, I guess, in the back of people's minds. What are your overall takes from, I guess, any of these two games, Mac?
For one, Everton have to be really, really stressed out. And for if you are a Blue fan and Liverpool, reason being is for my favorite rumor that came across over the course of the weekend was Jared Braithwaite's rumor to Liverpool, where they are now the odds-on favorite to sign him. And if that happens, the shithousery and shenanigans that will come from that would be hilarious, because they are a team, obviously didn't have a first good week. We expect to be in the relegation battle. And if you're talking about losing your young, promising center half who didn't play in this game, because of all the links and the rumors about him going somewhere else in all likelihood, they're off to a very poor start. And I would ask a lot of questions of them. If you, again, and for me, it's really, you're looking at, they just don't have enough quality in the squad. Sean Dyche, I think, is on his day, is a great manager and is very good at milking the best out of, kind of, I would argue, lower quality players and still providing a system and a platform to be successful. But there's only so much where you can get from if you're playing Ashley Young as a right back in 2024. Like there's only certain levels to this, and unfortunately, as of right now, I think that they are lacking a lot. So in terms of the Everton end, I'm very, very worried. And if anyone had any hopes, which I definitely squinted at towards how they finished the end of last season, that they could be better this year, I wouldn't be surprised, again, if they finish in the 16, 17, 18 range once again. So hopefully they do stay up. It's always nice to have them in the league. But I think this is going to be another very, very tough season for them. For Liverpool,
exactly. Just wanted to question as well, in terms of incomings and outgoings, they lost their big signing from a couple seasons ago, Amadou Onana, and haven't really brought anyone in. So even that is going to be a big point, because you said Sean Dyche can do well with a limited team, but it is looking like it's going to be a very limited team unless they have some activity in the transfer window. But go on, man.
Agreed. And they, to continue on your reaction, one of mine was going to be half tongue in cheek, is where it's only been one game, but Arne Slot is as good of a manager as Jurgen Klopp. Like, he's one for one, baby. Look how we're going, you know. But no, it was great to see that the way Liverpool went out and played the game. You saw Trent doing what he does in terms of distributing the ball, being on the front foot, being that creative sense. Salah getting behind, he still is able to kill it when he does have it. I think it very much felt like a game of last season in a lot of ways. You saw small, I'll say, patterns of play, small little tweaks to how Liverpool normally played, but it wasn't a seismic change in terms of what we've seen from previous years. Probably is going to happen over the course of multiple seasons for Arne Slot, where it's not going to just kind of be a complete kind of the rip of the Band-Aid in a lot of ways. It's a full reset. But considering the squad, considering what he's done, considering what he was able to do, I love to see that performance, and it was just a very good first step. But to give you my first overreaction, right? It's only been one game week, but the Premier League's better without Tottenham. They're playing tomorrow, and we're not bothering covering them. It is what it is. Like, we're all just happier, you know? Like, we don't even need to worry about them. Leicester, no offense, no disrespect. I love you, Jamie Vardy. Don't do anything disrespectful to Arsenal, please. We don't need that. But again, it's better. It's better. No. You disagree? No, I'm sorry. That was a joke again. For me, another overreaction I would have to say is where it's only been one game, but Manchester United are back. So
question.
It's very much a question. There is a question mark at the end of that statement. So it is an overreaction that I don't really believe, but I'm here for it. Where you're talking about like Harry Maguire, or a performance of his life in a lot of ways for Manchester United, where he is hitting diags across the pitch, winning competitive headers, stopping 2-on-1s, kind of an all-action defender, and probably the best defender in that game when he played alongside a lot of Manchester United's favorite defender, Martinez. De Ligt came on, looked strong. Joshua Zirkzee scored his first goal, even though the commentator really shouted out Scott McTominay in that, thinking that it was him, because that was very much a McTominay goal. Zirkzee kind of broke the deadlock there. We're going to move past the Rashford Garnacho 2-0 situation. Really fun to see that, though. But on the bright side, for this game, for Manchester United, for me, again, going into the season, I thought their floor was raised, and you can see that in a lot of ways, where they do have better quality in certain areas of the pitch. They do have more rotational options than they did last year. That's of course for the injuries and the income signings that they are able to, one, recover from the injuries, and two, bring in more players that fit the system of what Ten Hag wants to play. Though on the other end, in transition, if Traore, if Iwobi were even a slither of better quality on the ball, this is very much a dangerous situation for Manchester United. So again, it's only been one game. Manchester United are back, but for me, they're back to what they were exactly last year. Their strengths are still their strengths. They bought in and doubled down on what they do well, but their weaknesses, they've also doubled down. And I think they're going to struggle in those moments. And it's going to be interesting to see against better teams how consistently they get opened up and how much they get taken advantage of. Because it seems like a lot of times over the last couple of years, and not to disrespect their building, but it is falling apart. But when it rains at Old Trafford, it pours and seeps through the ceiling. So we'll see how it goes. Great first result. You can only kind of move forward from there, but they still have a lot of questions. They still have a lot of injury concerns. We'll see how they do going forward. But again, all you want coming out of the first game week, you pick up all 3 points, you get a clean sheet. That's a great start.
Yeah, and like honestly, as a football fans, that's all you want. You want a win on the first weekend. It'll keep you going for the next 6 days until your club plays again next weekend. Really, I do have to give credit to Man U, where even build up going from back to front, it looked a little more cohesive this time around. You already shouted out Harry Maguire, but I think that him and Lisandro Martinez, it looked like they had Dalot inverting at times and Mazraoui playing as a bombing as a forward, as a wide back that was going forward and back often. It at least, and Casemiro, of course, getting his involvement. It looked like they were building up more with a plan this time around. So I guess we have to give them credit there. But at the same time, I did have this as one of my things, my overreactions is Man U good or was Fulham bad? And I think it's kind of a bit of both, where Man U did play quite well. I think they outperformed in terms of the total XG, expected goals, 2.4 to 0.4 from Fulham. Fulham at this point just don't look in mid-season form, how we put it. And of course, it's the first game of the season, so wouldn't really expect them to do so there. Themselves, they look okay, but I do expect them to get better. But for Man U, if it wasn't for McTominay making that decoy run, and as soon as I saw him preparing for the substitution, Xerxes actually hadn't really gotten involved since McTominay came on to the pitch. I don't really think that that goal occurs, and it does. It was, I would say, a lucky passage of play that led to the goal. Nonetheless, it was a goal, but man, you're gonna have to work those kinks out, because you want to go past the Marcus Rashford and Garnacho incident. I don't, because Garnacho could have gotten me more fantasy points if he scored that away. It looks like he came off the bench for Amad Diallo. I'm not sure if that's going to be something moving forward, but still too early. I'm not sure I want to say Man U are back, but for Man U fans, this is a positive result. We'll just see what happens from there. Quickly to my last sort of, it's only been one game, but I'm going to overreact. The same question about was Man U good or was Fulham bad? Was West Ham bad or was Aston Villa good? I can't really tell. Looking at the expected goals, West Ham edged it out in this game, 2.3 to 2 for Aston Villa. So 0.3 more than Aston Villa. Chances came from both sides. Every time I glanced at the... I was doing things in between the games, so every time I glanced at the TV, it was a corner kick. So I couldn't really tell too much of what was happening apart from all these constant set pieces. But Aston Villa looked like if they're going to have a successful season, these are the types of games that they're going to have to win, with Ollie Watkins coming off and John Duran, of course, coming on, getting the winner. West Ham, though, a lot of signings and coming in, and it's going to take some time for them to gel. But if we did see Somerville come on, have some bright situations where he was putting in balls into the box, asking a lot of questions from that Aston Villa defense, but Antonio and Fulcru couldn't really create from from for their offense for West Ham. So I'm interested to see what's going to happen with them. It's only one game again, but a lot of people were saying and giving a lot of props to West Ham for how well they've done this offseason in terms of the activity. I'm a little more skeptical. I want to see more time. I want to see more games before I can sort of make my conclusion on how well they'll do this season. What do you think, Mac?
No, I think that's absolutely fair because for me, there have been a lot of changes. Agreed, they're in very much a transitional period for their club, where a lot of the older players are talking like the Antonio's, Thomas Suchek's, players of that ilk, where I think they want to figure out a way to move past them into a new generation of players. What hasn't happened yet is a playstyle adaptation, right? That we haven't really seen anything of there yet. With David Moyes leaving and new management coming in, it'll be interesting to see how that plays out, how they're able to improve. It's not there yet, so I think it's a fair question to ask. And Aston Villa, very much this year, everyone's harped on it. I think it's an astute point where they're very much, I feel like, going to have a very difficult season, similar to what Newcastle did last year. And it's great to pick up an early result like this. Newcastle last year, if you recall, started off hot. They started off really, really well. They were all in form, all excitement throughout the squad. And as kind of games build up, for them injuries, suspension, Sandro Tonali, stuff like that occurred as well. Maybe that won't happen to Aston Villa. I don't think anyone on their team has been convicted of gambling yet. We'll have to wait and see on that part. But I think it wouldn't surprise me that they may have a similar arc. But to continue on my overreaction is that other team I brought up is where Newcastle, are they back in the top four shouts? Because yes, they played against a team that just got recently promoted with Southampton.
Right.
But a 1-0 win, even though they with an experience getting a red card from one of their own players with Fabian Schär in the 28th minute, still coming out with a result like that beginning of the season, only one shot on target, only 22% possession. They were given kind of the hardest hand, I think, dealt towards any of the bigger teams for the first game of the Premier League season. And they came up with the win through a goal through Joe Linton. After a mistake by McCarthy, the goalkeeper for Southampton kind of gave it away. Isak teed up Joe Linton and had a very nice finish. But at the same time, it wasn't as if throughout the entirety of the game that Nick Pope really had to stand on his head and make a bunch of unbelievable saves to keep them in it. So lovely to see that in terms of Newcastle kind of overcoming that adversity. They themselves, I think, are a very interesting team because they haven't had a whole lot of incomings to be able to kind of take note of. I think that they will need to because they still are a thin squad. But for me, again, going into the season, if you have a good goalkeeper, a good shot stopper, a good back two, one of the best number sixes in the world, one of the best strikers in the world, you have such a strong foundation where everything else can kind of just fall into place and make sense. And for this game, in the one of the most adverse situations for them, they're able to pull through. So lovely to see that from them. And I think they're going to be a much, much more dangerous team this year than they were last year. So very excited for the Newcastle season this year.
Yeah, and unlucky for Southampton, who, if they looked at it, and no disrespect to them, predict if someone told them they're gonna come out with a 1-0 loss at Newcastle first game of the season, I think they would have been happy. But of course, they played with a man up for probably more than 60 minutes in this game. The way they did have chances and just couldn't put it away, they will feel, of course, disappointed. But for Newcastle, really, that's all you needed to do, get that win. And I'm excited to see what happens with, of course, Lewis Hall playing, getting the starts. Isak, of course, getting involved with the assist for Joe Linton. And of course, Sandro Tonali coming back at the end of the month. We'll see how fluid this team is. I'm not sure if they're going to be, with Tonali, a team that's going to be as reserved, meaning are they going to be the team that sits back most of the game, or are they going to want to be dictating the pace once he comes back? Because of course we know his quality. We'll see, I guess, when that does happen. But at the very least, we had a eventful first set of matches. Of course, we do have Leicester and Spurs coming up, time of recording tomorrow, which we'll cover in our next podcast. So this concludes our podcast for today. If you guys like what you heard, please like and subscribe to us on our social medias. That's at House of _Footy. If you have any comments, suggestions, or general banter, get in touch with us via email as well, hustlefooty@hotmail.com. The next time you hear from us will be next week when we preview match week 2 of the Premier League. But until then, thank you for joining us, Mac.
Peace out.
Liverpool back, boys.